Yeah, for example, the accident in Londiani, I told that the trailer began by hitting a vehicle that had stalled along next to the highway.
Yes, yes.
This stalled vehicle did not have the reflectors.
Oh yeah.
Yes, so there's no way this the trailer would have known that this bus has stalled, this vehicle has stalled.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to B&D channel. Today we are going to be covering a topic that affects both of us, something that has been on the limelight for the last 1 week or so. We are going to be discussing about road safety in this nation. So with us today is a special guest, Mr. Cledwin Mamai, who is going to be joining us to help us expound more about this. So Bwana Cledwin, karibu sana. Maybe before we begin the discussion, you can tell us one or two things about yourself.
Yes, thank you, Alan, for having me on the show. Yes, my name, as you've heard, is Cledwin Mamai. I am a husband, a future father, and a frequent traveler. I like traveling around Kenyan roads, yes, a lot. So I believe I have some experience on the road.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
I think the highlight for me in the introduction would be a frequent traveler. So maybe if we pick up on the bit of frequent traveling, will you maybe give us your experience in 3 to 5 minutes about your experience with Kenyan roads, Kenyan drivers, and the Kenyan traffic system?
Uh, Currently, I live in Nairobi.
Yes.
My home village is in Busia County, Teso North. That's about 500 kilometers apart.
That's crazy.
So that means I travel a lot going to the village and back to the city.
Oh, yeah.
Additionally, I do travel for work. Part of my work has been to work with NGOs running projects across the country. So frequently, I find myself traveling to other parts of the country, to the coastal region, to northeastern, even around the central areas of the country.
Oh, that's nice. Yes. So, in other words, you're trying to say that a big portion of this country, you've covered it on the road.
Yes, I would say out of the 47 counties, maybe I can count maybe 35 or 36 counties that I've been able to travel either for work, for pleasure, yeah, or passing through when I'm heading to other counties.
So Mr. Cledwin has done 36 out of 47 counties. So in the 36 counties that you've done, what is your say about the state of the roads and maybe how our drivers move about and around with the vehicles?
I would say, first of all, I've also had a bit of travel outside the country.
Yes.
And bring this in a context so that I can explain that
Yes, that's okay.
our Kenyan roads are relatively good.
All right.
Generally, I'm using the word generally good. Yes, of course, we have exceptions in different areas of the country, but our road network is good. If you look at the tarmac coverage in the country, is quite vast.
Okay.
And even the Maram roads that have been sort of graded up to be able to withstand traffic along all weather. That's also in good condition. So we have a good transport network in the country.
All right.
Yes. When it comes to the driving, now that's where we
What happens now?
where things take a different turn there.
How and why?
Yes, because despite us having good roads,
Yes,
I think our driving in the country,
yes.
I'll just put it out there and say that sometimes it leaves a lot to be desired.
By you saying it leaves a lot to be desired, what exactly do you mean? Or in other context, I will also write, maybe I will frame it this way. What do you think leads to that aspect of a lot to be desired?
Uh, I think this stems from our culture as a country,
Okay.
because our country, I'm sad to say this, is really a country of we are being used to be policed, meaning that if the policeman or whoever is supposed to enforce law and order is not there, we always try to find a shorter way of doing things.
So in other words, you're trying to say that our drivers are used to being followed here and there.
Yes.
Even when they're having life and their hands by themselves.
I can give a very practical example. Yes. If you drive around town,
yes,
and you come to a place where there are traffic lights, and then the lights are red,
yellow, for example.
let me say red, because that means you're not supposed to.
You're not supposed to move.
Yes.
Yes.
The notion of the culture of our drivers is that they look around to see if there are any traffic marshals or policemen. Yes, if there aren't any traffic policemen, definitely they move. And I've experienced that a lot of times in town. You get to a light, you being a good citizen, you try to
observe the rules,
but the guy behind you will not give you peace. They hoot at you, they even hurl insults at you because they feel like you're delaying them.
Yeah, you're consuming their time.
While in essence, for you, you are trying to follow the law because the law says that when the lights are red, you're supposed to stop. Yes, because I normally ask myself, yes, the roads are clear, but what in that very unfortunate scenario occurrence that someone just crosses the road, or a vehicle just crosses the road
in motion?
Yes, and we bump into each other. Will I be the one on the wrong, or what will I be able to tell the cops along that line?
And in that scenario, you shall have disobeyed the rules.
Yes, so for me, I normally try to do that. Now, coming to, let me use like an example of whenever we're traveling to the village. We normally hear this a lot when guys are traveling to the village for the holidays. Usually, we were in the Easter season.
Yes.
And we always see in the news about people getting stuck at people getting stuck at Ahero nowadays.
It happens a lot, especially during the festive seasons.
Yes, because and this happens mainly because of people being impatient on the roads.
I understand.
Yes, because it's not because the roads are normally clear. It's not because there are accidents along the way, but it's because vehicles try to overlap.
Yes. And finally, the end having the gridlock thing.
Yes, so they create a gridlock situation where now getting out of it is going to be a difficult situation.
Yeah, true.
And that's how our country, as drivers, we behave. Another example you can use is when you're driving at night, for example. Yes, it's just good practice. Yes. There's no law, but it's good practice that when you're driving at night, you dim your lights. Don't use the full lights.
Yeah, true.
Yes, unless you're in a very clear area where there's no much traffic.
Yes, there's no oncoming vehicle in other words.
Yeah. So what happens when you're driving in Kenya? Someone will be driving with full lights, and that's part of the problem. Now, the other problem in that scenario is that who has been hit by these full lights.
Your vision is blurred.
Yeah, my thoughts will be tuonyeshane sasa.
Yeah, you equally.
Yeah, so for me, I also put on my full lights, and so you see, we are creating a dangerous scenario whereby both of us are not able to see the roads. Yeah, so we create a very high risk of us bumping into each other, or either or both of our vehicles rearing.
But even if there was an obstacle on the road,
you
won't easily notice it because your focus is on blurring the other person.
Yes, trying to prove a point.
Yeah,
yes.
True. I understand. So, in other words, what you are trying to say in a nutshell is that our culture and our practice has kind of costed us in our driving skills or on the roads.
Yes. I would say yes, there are also other factors. For example, sometimes road conditions are not good. And also sometimes maybe if you drive maybe along places, maybe in Nyandarua County is normally very rife with issues of mist and snow.
Yes.
That can also contribute to road
the weather
safety.
factors.
Yes, but still even those weather factors can pose a less risk if as the drivers we are careful. For example, if you're driving along, if you're going through Kimende, for example.
Yes. It's
normally a very misty place. But you'll find guys really speeding there. It's thereby multiplying the risk that is already prevalent there because of the mist. Or you're driving without having your lights on. Because you feel like, for me, I've driven on this road for long, so I can
so I know the road.
Yes.
So picking up on the same, what do you think, apart from whatever you've discussed before, what do you think has led to, especially in the recent past, we have had scenarios where there's been a terrible increase in the number of road carnages. For instance, I think last term when the schools were closing, there were unfortunately a number of students who were from school going home with their parents being so hopeful, but they lost their lives it's also quite sad that recently the same happened. I think around Salga, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Yes, it happened just before dusk will settle in. Again, now we have the one notorious one, the Londiani one, where more than 53 people have been confirmed dead. Just before we can even forget about that, in fact, a prayer session was being held the other day for the victims who had the accident claimed their lives. Then now, Enakot again also, Enakot bus also was involved in another accident. What do you think has so far just led to an upsurge of that increase of the accidents on the road, apart from whatever factors that you discussed?
I think corruption also plays a very big role.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using the word corruption in a very broad sense.
Yes.
In this context, meaning that there is laxity in enforcement of the law.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the law meaning that you're not supposed to drive a vehicle that is road unworthy in any sense.
Yes.
Yes, the brakes should be intact, the tires should be able to have enough grip on the road.
Mm-hmm.
But you find that along our roads, most of our roads are sort of like collection points
for traffic police.
Yeah, for traffic policemen.
Mm-hmm.
So that means a policeman will stop a vehicle.
Yes.
And they rarely take time to actually inspect the vehicle
and see the condition of the vehicle.
Yes, most times they'll just walk up to the driver's window.
Yes.
You'll see a handshake going on.
Yes.
And the vehicle
and the deal is done, whether or not the vehicle is
so regardless,
to get to its destination.
yeah, I travel sometimes using public means.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was traveling one day to Butere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think we were almost twice the
capacity
of the vehicle, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the vehicle was stopped. And I remember I was really worried because I thought
you're going to be arrested.
The vehicle was going to be impounded or something, thereby disrupting my journey. But to my surprise, the people in the vehicle are very much okay. That means it's something that they are used to.
It's a nominal.
Yeah, they are used to the fact that as long as our driver is able to give this guy
a little cash,
a little something, our journey will continue.
We get our destination.
Yeah, so enforcement is has a big part to play.
Mm-hmm.
And also, there's also something called human misjudgment or lack of human judgment. Yes, for example, when you're driving, sometimes we underestimate our abilities and our skills on the road. Yes, I might have driven for this long or for this short of amount of time, but at no point should I get to a point where I feel like now I can drive on the road without feeling any sort of care. Yes, because sometimes you feel like you can make a very risky overtaking maneuver, hoping that within that small period of time you'll be able to veer off to the other lane and then come back to your lane. And sometimes that can be a very big miscalculation on your part. Yeah, so human judgment also plays a very big role.
But Cledwin, you'll wonder that some of the scenarios or some of the things where these accidents happen, they are not like new to us.
Yes.
There are places where accidents have occurred before. In fact, the roads are even labeled with the signatures along the road of black spots ahead. But this accident still happen. For instance, the one famous Sanchang one, we know it. It's even been they've even placed barricades so that demarcations on both sides of the road. They've even done bumps. But again, you wonder, just after Sanchang one, which is a hot spot, then just below it, an accident happened. After Sanchang one, where someone climbs, just get down on Londiani, accident happened. What leads to this?
Like I said, I think that driving for a very long time seems to give us a false sense of confidence. Let me use that. Yes. Yes, because the fact that personally I think the last 1 year I've driven to the village almost like 10, 15 times.
Yes.
Yes, but one thing I always remind myself whenever I'm leaving whichever area I'm leaving, I always have this in the back of my mind that I'm a candidate for death at that point. That means
you're vulnerable to anything.
Yes, anything can happen on the road.
Okay.
Yes, and I think one thing that needs to be put into our syllabus for driving is about defensive driving.
Yes.
Because when you do defensive driving, you're always taught to expect the worst.
Yes.
Yes. So
and you assume the other driver is never.
At no point in time will you be comfortable because you are a good driver. No, you're always worried because you don't know the other driver. The other driver might try to veer to your side. Someone might hit you from the back. Someone might be overtaking on the oncoming side. True. So that needs to be put into practice into our road so that people are able to understand that however long you drive, mistakes happen. Because I can be sure, you can be 100% sure that most of the accidents don't happen to new drivers. Yes. They happen to people, for example, I think it was today or yesterday when the inner coach bus fell down. That's a public service vehicle.
That has been there for quite a while.
I think for a PSU driver, you have to have driven for a while.
Yeah, to be trusted with such a number of lives.
Yeah, so that means that this driver has driven for a while. So it's not a matter of being new on the road. Actually, it's a matter of being used to the road.
Okay.
Yes, we use a Kenyan term to mezoeana na barabara.
I understand what Cledwin is trying to say. Now, Cledwin, who is a frequent traveler, is trying to explain what are some of the causes of these accidents that have been on the rise, or rather absurd in the recent past. And one thing that is clearly stating is that we've used this road frequently, that now most of our drivers are assuming that they know them, especially on these hotspots. But now that these accidents have proven to be happening, Mr. Cledwin, what do you think some of the things that can be done, perhaps, especially on these areas that year in, year out, we have lives being claimed? What can be done on these particular areas so that this is controlled?
I think it's just, for me, it's just enforcement.
By enforcement, you mean?
We already have laws, because I normally hear sometimes the government having a very reactionary approach to things where they
knee-jerk reaction.
Where there's something happening, then they now say we'll do this because this has happened.
Actually, just to interject, like the other day when a prayer session was being conducted and lives has been lost, and then interestingly, just during the prayer session, another accident occurs.
This, like I said at the beginning, for Kenya, sadly, we are used to being policed.
Yes.
Yes. So the only way you can avoid these things is being policed. That means that because we are used to, like in a school setup, there are sometimes when you're in high school, for example, or even in primary school, and the teacher is out of class, the natural tendency for the children, for the pupils to make noise.
Yeah, true.
Yes, they only keep quiet if there's a teacher around, or maybe there's a threat of their names being written down in the noisemaker system. So even for our roads, I think the main thing is that we have to have that policing. Policing can have two ways. It can be the real policing, but also having that perception of being policed will make people a bit careful in the roads. Because right now people are able to be complacent because they know
the rules are relaxed.
Yeah, they know nikishiko na makosa, I can give a cop this amount of money
and then I'm done.
Yes. For example, I can give my personal example. I was driving in Nairobi one day. Yes, and I misjudged the traffic lights. So the lights turned red as I was getting across. That means, in one way of looking at it, that I would skip the lights.
Yeah.
So when I got to the other side, a policeman stopped me.
For that mistake?
Yes. And he asked me to park the vehicle by the roadside. And I did that. So he walked around, asked me for my license. I gave it to him. Then he walked into the other side and asked me to open the door so that he could get into the car. Yes, I just opened the door because I was curious to see how these things happen. Yes.
What step was going to take next?
So he got into the passenger seat. Then he asked me if I knew my mistake.
The co-driver seat or
the co-driver seat. So he asked me, do you know your mistake? And I told him, yes, I know. And I'm sorry because the light turned as I was across. Because
I was already in motion.
Yes, because that stretch, if you've been driven next to junction, yes, there's a bit of there's a space, some space.
True.
Yeah, so the light turned as I was in the middle of that, and there's no way I could go back. That would have caused me another accident.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so this cop gets into my car and then asks me, "Sa unasemaje?"
Anakuuliza hivyo.
Yeah. So I tell him, sina story. So he tells me, "Umefanya makosa." Yeah, I'm sorry, and I'm sorry for that mistake, but nisamehe kama kuna kitu yote nimefanya. Yeah, so we continued to argue for a while, and all this time he was tending towards asking for a bribe from me,
so that he can let you go.
Yes. Yeah, but for me, because of my upbringing and my morals, I was not going to give him a bribe. Yeah, so at the end he told me, let's get to the police station. So I asked him, actually he was surprised because I asked him which one. So he tells me, let's go to Kilimani. So we drove for almost 2 kilometers.
To Kilimani.
Heading towards Kilimani. So all along the road, he kept asking me, kitu kidogo ama tuingie ndani. Nikasema, nataka kuingia huko. Hiyo kiingia makosa ingine kubwa sana.
A bit of a threat kidogo sasa aone kama
so
you give in or not.
I stood my ground. So we go to the center. That's about, we were just approaching actually Kilimani police station. And he asked me just to park the vehicle. And then he asked me, sasa unasemaje ya mwisho man?
One last time.
Yes. I told him, I'm sorry, I've done a mistake.
Yeah, but I'm not going to
ask for forgiveness from you. Yeah, but if forgiving me is a problem, then I'm ready for us to
follow the law.
Yeah, to go to the police station. You can book me because I don't think I need to spend the night in the cell. Just book me, give me a court date, and
I will show up.
I'll show up in court. So it's like, if I take you to court, it's going to charge you 5,000 shillings for that offense. Yeah, and I'm going to, for me, I'm only asking for 1,000 bob from you. I said I'm not.
Yeah, it's trying to tell you to compare the weight. 5,000 and 1,000.
I told you I'm not giving you any money. Yes. I'm bringing this point so that you can see the problem with Kenya is that Kenyans, first of all, are afraid of the police. So because this policeman was surprised that I was not very.
You're not shaken.
Yes. And number two, the police themselves take advantage of that fear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they always have that advantage.
Yes, because for them they find that maybe they have arrested you for something like that, a traffic violation. The natural instinct will be, I'm in a hurry. Actually, I was in a hurry on that day.
Yeah, true.
So I would have seen the easier way out for me would have been for me to give him some money.
Bribe and then you proceed.
Yeah, to hit my errands. But I said, no, I'm not giving you any money.
And it's quite unfortunate that most of our policemen have adopted this culture, even though they're not trained to work in that perspective. So maybe if we now take a different trajectory. In the recent past, when we had our current CS for transport, he has always mentioned, and even recently, I think yesterday, if I'm not wrong, he mentioned that we're supposed now they're going to enforce, like you've been putting out, the installation of cameras in the vehicles. And also, they're also trying to say that the drivers will do a re-examination before they're given the driving license. Do you think this will help in getting down the rate of accidents?
I think that will, okay, maybe empirically on the outside it might reduce, but for me that will be
ground between different.
For me, first of all, we already have enough laws which are not being
followed.
Yes.
Yes.
So we'll just be adding on to the list of laws not to be followed. Yes, because when you say you're going to install cameras on these vehicles, I think the first thing you would have said, you're going to ensure that all vehicles are roadworthy, first of all.
Yes.
Yes, you should have said, I'm going to make sure that all vehicles have the proper tires, proper equipment. Yeah, for example, the accident in Londiani, we are told that the trailer began by hitting a vehicle that had stalled along next to the highway.
Yes, yes.
This stalled vehicle did not have the reflectors.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, so there's no way this trailer would have known that this bus has stalled, this vehicle has stalled. You see,
it's not moving.
Yeah, so that's a very simple aspect of cops stopping vehicles and asking them for
checking.
Yeah, do you have the warning signs?
Yeah, true.
Yes, such things should have been at the very minimum, the ways of ensuring that we have reduced numbers of accidents in the country. Yes, so for me, I believe we already have enough things that can stop accidents in this country. Yes,
so according to you, it's not about introducing new measures.
Yes.
It's about going back to the ones that already existed and then enforcing them through so that they are all implemented.
Yes, for me, it's like, for example, in a household, for example, maybe the father comes home and realizes that the sons always come home late in the evening. Yes, and for them, I think, the thing will be for the father to say, from today, I don't want you to come home late unless you have a very valid reason. But what the minister is doing, the CS is doing, is basically like saying, I'll give you cameras to ensure that I follow you where you're going, you see.
So that's a knee-jerk reaction.
Yes.
To in reacting to the situation at Londiani will not help.
Will not help much if you ask me. Because it's a problem everywhere. For example, hawkers have encroached the road in so many places in the country. Drive along roads in Nairobi, actually. Even Nairobi actually thinks that's the worst issue with that. Yeah, you drive along the roads and you find so many people.
The road reserves are occupied.
Yeah, by people selling. And those reserves are there to give a margin of error.
Yeah, just in case of anything.
Yeah, when a driver maybe just sort of has to veer off the road briefly, maybe to avoid a pothole or to avoid bumping into another vehicle. But you find that now that cannot be done because
they're already human population.
Yeah, human beings are already filling up the roadsides. So if that already presents a danger to the drivers, to the people on the ground. Yes, it's unfortunate that you've lost lives in these accidents like down in Londiani because of that.
53 people is quite a lot.
Yes, and most of them actually are poor on the roadside.
Which is quite unfortunate.
Yes, but you see now that the issue now comes back to, were they supposed to be there in the first place?
By the way.
Yes, because the ideal is, I think you're supposed to have some distance between the road and
exactly. Like you explaining the way it's happening in Nairobi, where the hawkers and the traders, the small scale traders have occupied the road reserves.
Yes.
To an extent that even if there's an emergency, a vehicle cannot easily contain it.
So I, as a driver, will have two options. If I'm driving, for example, I'm driving from here to Nakuru and I'm getting to a place where there are two options. Option number one, I hit the vehicle in front of me. Option number two is for me to veer off the road. For me, I think the easier way would be to veer off the road.
Yeah, true.
Because if you rear end a lorry, for example,
you're likely to die.
Yeah. So I think that's the risk that these guys are putting themselves into. Because by sitting on the roadside, they're like now targets. Moving targets are a bit harder to hit in anything. But sitting targets like those guys who sit along the roadside make themselves very susceptible to being hit by these vehicles that might veer off the road one or another.
Now, Cledwin, you said that every day when we all hit the road, we're all candidates of death.
Yes.
Based on our judgment.
Yes.
Based on our driving skills. Yes, and based on also the fellow drivers and road users on the other side. So maybe you see the koguma here is that fine, there are laws, like you explained, they're not being followed. And those who are supposed to help enforce them, again, have been sapped away by bribery and corruption. But again, now, if Kenyans find themselves in a situation whereby they have to use the roads, at the same time, it's a small economy that revolves. Because you realize, for instance, the one famous Londiani where accidents are now getting more and more rampant, the moment your vehicle stops, they will completely circle it with maize, with farm produces, variety, and they want to sell it to you. So then, what is supposed to be done to these people who have to raise or earn a living by selling to road users like you and me, who are using the road at that particular time, and yet, like you're saying, they're not supposed to also occupy the road reserves. They're already endangering their lives. But again, if they don't do this, they cannot earn a living also. What's supposed to be done to them?
Let me give an example of Gilgil. You've driven through the Gilgil Way Bridge. Some time back, you drive along that road and you get to the way bridge where there are the bumps. You find so many hawkers.
Yes, especially at night.
Yes. But right now we don't see those hawkers. Yeah, there are no hawkers there.
I hadn't noticed that.
It's a simple matter of a directive being issued.
Yes.
That you're not supposed to be here.
So according to you, if a directive is issued, and those people who are down there at Londiani,
at Gilgil it's easy because there are policemen there who
normally are counterchecking the weight and all of that.
And they make sure that also that law is followed.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you are approaching the place, you will see that there are signs written, no hawking here. Yes. For Londiani, I don't think it's a matter of economic trying to make a living, because that makes sense. Risking your life, make a living.
But Cledwin, do you think this is really risking? Because you realize, number one, that place is not, I can't say it's sparsely populated. It's more of between dense and sparse. So that means that the purchasing power is kind of low, and then they have the monotony of product. The residents of that place, like they grow, they plant almost the same things. So if not able to sell them at large scale level, then the best they can sell them at small scale. The people who bring in this streams of money are the passers-by. So where do they go? What do they do? Not risking their life to earn a living.
If you look at markets like Kikopey, for example, Kikopey began as such a situation whereby it began as people running to the road and selling things.
Yes.
But because of now the need to sort of mainstream and streamline the operations, these people had to move to shops. Yes, and you find people still, we normally stop there to go to the shops and buy these things. For example, if I'm driving to Kisumu and I want to buy original tea,
Yes.
Kericho tea.
Yes, Kericho tea.
Yes, I don't think I would have a problem parking my vehicle
beside the road.
Yes, I do that when I'm driving. Maybe actually I do that when I'm driving towards Mount Kenya because there's a Del Monte shop somewhere.
Yes, yes.
Just after Thika town. Yes, and I don't think it's very much of a hassle for me to stop my vehicle, walk into that shop, get my canned pineapples, walk back to the shop and drive off.
So in other words, you're suggesting the same way it's been done at Kikupe,
Yes,
and the Del Monte example you've given,
yes,
perhaps there's need for construction,
yes,
physical structures
yes,
where they can stay. And then now the road users, the drivers and personal vehicles and what have you, should now take a personal discipline to stop by the shops.
yes.
That way you think the rate of the accident or becoming victims of circumstances will
they are sort of trying to mitigate the risk there. Because also, truth be told, those accidents don't happen so much often.
Yeah, true.
Yes, what we're trying to do at that point is to reduce the risk of such accidents happening.
Okay.
Yes, because I was in Muranga, I think last weekend, and along the road there, markets that have been established. Yes, stores have been built. Yes, and strategically near railway crossings, so people have to slow down.
All right.
Yes, and whenever people are driving to the villages in our country, in Muranga, they always stop their vehicles
to buy
the produce, and they go to the shops and buy the produce. Yes, and I think that can also work elsewhere because
true. If it has worked there,
for me, it's not really worth the risk trying to make a living and you fail to go home that evening because of you're trying to run after a vehicle or something. Yes, because I believe human lives are more sacred than sometimes how we treat them.
Cledwin says human lives are more sacred than sometimes how we treat them. And he also reminds us that as every road user on the road, every day we are candidates of death. And therefore it takes a personal discipline to ensure that you don't get involved because sometimes it's beyond your control. So I challenge us, you and me who uses the road frequently, to keenly follow what Cledwin has said, especially on the self-discipline aspect, so that when the government now is dealing with the police department to ensure that they properly enforce these laws, because Cledwin has actually put it that we don't need new laws. The already existing laws that just need to be enforced, and then these things will be controlled. So maybe Cledwin, maybe in a nutshell as we finish up, maybe what will be your recommendation? Number one, to the road users. Number two, to the government, what can be done so that they can control the situation. And number three, to the residents who stay around and to the road users who also uses the well-known hotspots in this country. With the reference being particularly to Londiani'S and Chanwan and what other.
For road users, first of all, I believe you mean drivers.
Definitely.
Yeah, you should never at any point feel confident in the road.
That you know the road?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, be confident that you can drive a vehicle because you need that to be able to stay on the road. But at no point should you feel like you're not capable of getting an accident. Yes, because sometimes it's upon you, sometimes it's also due to the other factors that might be outside of your control.
So never assume.
Yes, so that's one thing should be at the back of your mind whenever you turn on the ignition key of your car.
Yes.
To drive off. Yes. For the government, I think it's just a matter of enforcing. I believe we have enough police officers, we have enough officers from the NTSA who can do this work. Yes. So there needs to be a mechanism to ensure that, and I am grateful because the president mentioned that they are bringing together all the payment platforms of the government into one, so that even if you're caught on the road driving,
whether you're involved in
and you have to pay a fine, you still use the same
platform.
Yes, that means at least there's reduced need for you to check money from your pocket
to give the police.
Yeah, so I think such measures will be encouraged and are increased so that even over time, because some of these things take time to develop and
true. It's a culture.
Yes,
and it has to be nurtured.
Yes. So that over time we'll get used to the fact that we need to keep the law because for us, like I said, we are always looking at the cops. So unless the cops, where we know that the cops are there, we'll always have this
mentality.
Yes, but as long as I know that the law is being enforced by the policemen, I'll also be careful on my side.
Awesome.
And for lastly, for the people who sell their wares along the roads,
Yes.
I don't think you need to risk your life for the sake of it.
True.
Yes, even before the government builds these stores, I don't think you need to run after a vehicle.
Yes.
Yes, I'd rather you stop, wait for the vehicle to
Come to you.
Yeah, and you
And
can
service them.
Yes, rather than you running after vehicles because they're trying to make a living.
Awesome.
Yes.
Familiarity breeds contempt. So fellow Kenyans, do not be familiar with the roads, because Mr. Cledwin, a frequent traveler, has clearly put it that we are all candidates of death as long as we use those roads every day. So don't get familiar with the roads. Secondly, please be disciplined when you use the road, so that you don't get yourself in traffic offenses. And as he's also saying, let us we pray and believe that the government will ensure that all payments are done on one platform, so that if we or you or me are involved in a traffic offense, we can all be charged and pay on the same platform. Otherwise, we ask and pray, we shall both take care, we shall both be cautious, and most importantly, we shall both observe road discipline so that we preserve our lives. Remember, we only live once. Those vehicles can always be repaired. Thank you. Please keep it real. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, make sure you share.